Hi, this is Joe, and this is the Filmjoe podcast, where film talk happens.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi, I'm Joe, your host, and I'm here with Carlos. Carlos, yes. And welcome to the podcast where we talk about films, filmmakers, trends, the good, the bad, and the not so bad, all in the spirit and for the love of film. So, first off, this is the final episode of the season.
Huzzah.
I never thought we'd get past 3-4 episodes of this show.
Yeah, it seems like it was just yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it's gone by so fast, and it's been a lot of fun. I've had a blast doing this. It's been a lot of work, but it pays off overall, and we just love doing it. It's a lot of fun. And we do have a ceremonial drinking decanter on our desk here of Grey Goose vodka,
Huzzah.
which we will be taking a shot of at the end of the episode to celebrate the end of the first season.
Celebratory drinks.
We can't have that right now because we will not get through the fucking episode.
Let me tell you about the movie.
It's a good movie. So, yeah, we'll wait till the end of the episode before we take our shots.
For your guys' sake.
Yes, and for our own. So we're going to be talking about vampire films this episode. And again, keep in mind that we may be giving out some spoilers to some of these films. So if you haven't seen them, maybe you might want to...
Shame on you.
Shame on you.
Let's just start by that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's your own fault.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're to blame.
Your fault?
No, their fault.
Their fault. Okay.
Yeah, I'm breaking the wall here, man.
Break that wall.
Yeah.
Which one? The fourth?
The fourth wall.
Breaking that fourth wall. Or the fifth.
No.
When other dimensions, it could be a fifth a wall.
Well, what about the sixth wall?
Yeah, wow, we're getting deep into some serious scientific shit here.
Yeah, man.
Wow, food for thought. So, but before we get to the episode, it is time for... News bits. So, first off, you know that it's going to be a pretty interesting summer. Not as stacked as I would like it to be as far as output of films, but there's some good ones out there. One of them being Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible. What is it called? I forget.
The Next Mission?
The Next Mission, yeah. And that's due out on the 12th of July. Now, there's an issue happening right now where it's 2 weeks later, Oppenheimer is opening.
Oof.
Now, what format is Oppenheimer opening on?
IMAX.
What is Mission Impossible, the most recent one's known for?
I'm guessing IMAX?
IMAX. That's where they make a big chunk of their change. So Tom Cruise has been kind of pressuring the studio over there that's doing Oppenheimer to push their release date a little further down so that they can have more IMAX time. I don't think it's going to happen.
No, I don't think so either.
I mean, it's Christopher Nolan. Who's doing Oppenheimer, and he's kind of a stubborn filmmaker and kind of a heavyweight in the industry, so I don't think it's going to get pushed back.
I would highly doubt it.
Yeah, and I think Cruise wants a little bit more of that Top Gun Maverick box office that he enjoyed last year, or was it this year? It was this year, huh?
No.
No, was it?
No, it was last year's summer.
Last year, yeah. So he's kind of looking for a repeat of that kind of business, so it's going to get it either way.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a fight for IMAX.
Granted, my money is going to Oppenheimer, though.
Oppenheimer, 100%. I mean,
yeah.
I like Mission Impossible, like we discussed in earlier episodes. You're not much, you never followed them as much.
Correct.
But it looks like a good film. But yeah, my money's on Oppenheimer.
Yeah. Also,
another news bit out there is the sequel, or it's a prequel series for Supernatural called The Winchesters. Now, you never watched Supernatural.
Correct.
Damn good series. You got to give it a shot. They did a prequel series on like the parents of the two main characters when they start off as they're hunters. They hunt down paranormal creatures like demons and stuff. And so they did this prequel. I haven't got to see it yet. My sister, Daisy, who's a huge fan of the series Supernatural, she started watching it, and she said pretty much that it sucked royal ass.
Isn't it the show the Winchesters?
The Winchesters,
Yeah.
exactly.
I heard it got canceled.
It got canceled. So, in today's distribution market in with streaming and not just networks, but you have streaming platforms, they were trying to find a platform that would buy it and continue it. Kind of like Netflix would save certain shows like Manifest and The Blacklist and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
No, nobody's buying the Winchester, so it is officially dead.
Dang.
Yeah, so one of the main stars of the series, he's looking to create kind of a spin-off series now.
The spin-off of the spin-off?
Yeah, a spin-off of a spin-off, I don't know.
Sure, I guess.
That ship is long sailed. It was a great series. I loved it. That was a lot of fun. It had a lot of great fan following, but it's time for it to just kind of just go away.
Yeah.
At this point. So that's all I have for news bits.
Hey,
yeah,
solid.
So what about
about like what have you seen? What have you done? What have you about?
Well, okay. Well, I
what have you seen?
The Watch Report. Okay.
That.
Well,
that's what I said.
Yeah, I got that right off the bat.
Yeah.
I recently saw a few films, actually. I got some good film time in. I watched Pope's Exorcist.
Okay.
With Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe, yeah.
Not bad. It's not a great film. Had this been with somebody else other than Russell Crowe, it would have sucked big time. It would have been a piece of shit. But Russell Crowe, he lends some gravitas to the film. He's a damn good actor. And so he does a good job in it, and he's very humorous, and it's not scary at all. Unfortunately, if you're going to do an Exorcist film, it's kind of hard to do one without the cliches and the tropes.
Right.
You have to have the floating person, the spinning head.
The power of Christ compels you.
Yeah, the incantation of the exorcism ritual. And these are all cliche and tropey at this point. So you're going to do an exorcism film, and you want to be different, you can't. It's hard to do so. So I give it a pretty solid 7, 6.5. It was entertaining. And that's based predominantly on Russell Crowe's performance.
Okay, so basically he saved the entire project.
He did. He did. Another film I saw was J-Lo. She has a film on Netflix called The Mother.
Uh-huh.
And it's about a mom who was I think she was a confidential informant for the FBI. She's a pregnant lady who was pregnant by some mafioso drug cartel or whatever. And she's in protective custody. They come down and try to kill her. They stab her in the stomach, yada, yada. She's in the hospital. And finally, she's taken back by the FBI. And they're like, okay, you know what? They know who you are, where you are. They know you have a kid. So we're going to have to separate you and the kid. And you have to give up custody of the kid.
What the fuck?
Yeah. And so years pass, like 12 years pass. Everything's fine until she gets word that her daughter is being targeted. And so she leaps into action. And all this time, 12 years, she's been training and muscling up. And god damn, J-Lo, she's like, what, almost 60? She's 55, 60 years old. She's toned and muscled up and everything. She's incredible. And you believe she can kick your ass.
Like Sarah Connor from the original Terminator.
Yes. She's pretty damn amazing. So it was a pretty good film. I liked it. I also saw a movie called Sisu, which is basically set in 1944 Poland, where some gold miner strikes gold and he gets harassed and they kick the shit out of some Nazis and they take away his gold. And he goes after him, after these Nazis, John Wick style.
Hell yeah.
And it starts blowing them up, and it's extreme. They really push the limits of acceptable or, believability.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but it was still fun. It was pretty damn good. It's not like a fast-paced action film, but when it gets into gear as an action film, it's pretty damn disturbing. But yeah, there will be parts in there you go, get the fuck out of here. This guy's dead.
Come on, man.
Yeah, it's a bit too, it's stretching a little bit. And today I got to see The Boogeyman.
Hey, okay.
I just came out of the theater just like a few hours ago, based on a Stephen King short story or something. But from what I've heard, it's kind of a sequel to it or something, or inspired by. But nonetheless, Stephen King was involved in it. Good stuff. It's good old-fashioned funhouse, spook fest fun.
Okay.
They have jump scares that are cheap, but they're backed up by creepiness. There's scenes in there where you got the camera lingering and moving. You see something in the background and it kind of builds up and you're sitting there going, oh shit, here it comes. So it's a well-structured little horror film. It's a lot of fun. It's a good Halloween type of flick.
Okay.
So it was really good. Especially, I mean, I have noticed that there is an uptick in horror films that are coming out. There was a shit ton of trailers. The majority of them were horror films, but it was pretty neat. It was pretty good. I enjoyed it. So what about yourself?
Nothing.
Okay, so I've seen.
I kid. I saw a single movie,
Okay.
so that's something to talk about. I saw just yesterday the new Spider-Man film, Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh, okay.
Man, that was good.
It was good?
It was good. If you like the first one, if you like the animation style, you're gonna love it even more the second time around.
Yeah, I saw the box office returns for this weekend, and it's doing pretty well. It outnumbered the first one.
Mm-hmm.
It's doing really, really well. So I think it looks like they're probably going to continue this franchise.
I hope so, because it takes up like everything that made the first one good,
Mhm.
and it makes it better. Because
Oh,
the
okay.
animation style improves, because now they're visiting, I guess, okay, the simplest way to define it is like they're visiting different dimensions, and every dimension has like its own animation style. So one of the ones that they visit is kind of like a watercolor sort of animation style, and it's weird to describe, but it makes it look really nice.
Okay.
Like there's some sad monologues that go about, and everything is purple and blue. And then when the conversation starts gearing up to more like a positive tone,
Mhm.
it becomes, yellows and I don't know, like more warmer colors, like
Right.
slightly reddish.
So
So it builds not only like the conversation, but you get like the environment changing as well.
Oh, well, it sounds kind of like expressionism.
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow. Okay. I mean, I'm not much into. I wasn't interested in the first one, and not much into the second. But I do see the quality of the films, and that they are pretty good for what they are.
Hmm.
I mean, if I was into it, I'd probably watch them.
You should get into them.
I might.
I say so. They are worth it.
All
Plus
right.
the soundtrack. Mwah,
Yeah, I
chef's
heard
kiss, man.
the soundtrack was really good. That's what it's really being lauded for its soundtrack.
Hmm.
So yeah, I might check it out.
I know what that means, but it's okay.
Yeah. So what do you say it's time to approach that crypt and impale the Prince of Darkness square in the heart.
That's pretty good, man.
Thank you very
That's
much.
pretty good.
Yeah, I wrote it right here in the script.
Hey.
But yeah, what do you say we dive into some vampire films?
Oh, let's suck some blood.
Ah.
Blood.
Blah, blah. Okay. So first off, we're going to go into this first film. Is pretty much, in my opinion, the definition of what a cool vampire film is. It's got that 80s flair, and it takes itself pretty seriously as a vampire film, but has fun at the same time. It's basically the Breakfast Club meets Nosferatu.
Mm.
You'll never grow old, Michael. And you'll never die. Be one of us.
Notice anything unusual about Santa Carla yet?
It's a pretty cool place. If you're a Martian.
Or a vampire.
So after moving into a new town, two brothers discover that the area is a haven for vampires. The film we're talking about is The Lost Boys from 1987, directed by Joel Schumacher. The film stars Jason Patric, Corey Haim, Diane Wiest, and Jamie Kurtz. Oh, and Kiefer Sutherland.
Hey.
How can we forget
The Vampire.
The Vampire? Pretty damn good film. It's to me, it ranks up there as one of my favorite all-time vampire films. And you just recently saw it for the
Just
first
recently
time.
saw it, yeah.
What was your take on it?
I actually really enjoyed it. Not only the soundtrack to it, but like the whole ambiance that it sets. Like something isn't right here, and you're kind of thinking about it. But you don't want to say it, but then again, you know what the movie is about. You know what I mean? You get what I mean?
You get those vibes that something weird is. I mean, especially that whole opening montage sequence, because they go to a beach, like a coastal town called Santa Carla.
Yeah.
It's Santa Carla, which is actually Santa Cruz. It's a real town.
Yeah.
This opening montage with the song "People Are Strange," which is originally by Jim Morrison and the Doors, was redone here by Echo and the Bunnymen.
Bunnymen.
And they were a popular group back in the 80s, and they did a really good rendition of the song. They probably did it for budgetary reasons. I mean, getting the actual song will cost more versus just the lyrics and
Yeah.
music. And but it was a damn good song. But you do get that vibe. It's like, yeah, it's weird. People are weird. And it's almost like you get this montage of people who go, that could be a vampire.
That one is a vampire.
Yeah, there's some you go, oh fuck, yeah, that's a vampire for sure. But yeah, it definitely sets the tone really well. Love the film. And again, it has fun with the subject of vampire movies, but at the same time, it takes it seriously when it has to. It's a coming of age film when it needs to be.
Yeah.
It's a brother, two brothers.
It's a brother-ly love sort
kind
of film.
Yeah. It's about family, but then it's about vampires. And you see that juxtaposed parallel between the two families. You have the vampire family, and you have the mortal.
The not vampire
The-
family.
right, the not vampire family. It's really, it's cool. And you have the, Kiefer Sutherland, who, holy shit, he is the coolest fucking vampire I've ever seen. I mean,
I saw him and I was like, damn, that's a cool fucking vampire. Not only with the bikes, but the piercing, the jacket, the white blowout hair.
Oh,
I was like, damn, you're a cool vampire, man.
And the way he talks, is like, hey, Michael.
Yeah.
He's almost sarcastic and condescending, but super fucking cool in the process. You're like, if I become a vampire, I want to be him.
I want to be, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and you know where the term Lost Boys comes from, right?
Yes.
Yes, but for those who don't know,
Exactly. Explain it to them, please.
it comes from Peter Pan.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Because they never age.
Exactly. They were the Lost Boys and Neverland. They never aged. They always have fun and, this eternal youth. Again, the tonal elements, that opening sequence when they don't show you them as vampires until a certain point in the film.
Yeah.
But you see them through the camera lens in that scene in the parking lot with the security guard. Remember that? And that was just beautiful. I mean, you get this
top aerial view
of the ocean at night, and it's flying towards the parking lot, and you got love the lens flare, the cinematography. I mean, people talk shit about lens flares in film now, but they were very cool back then and they worked really good. So the film had a very sleek, cool feel and look to it. And, it really had an impact. Did you know that, first of all, Santa Cruz, they actually have outdoor screenings by the beach of The Lost Boys every year.
That's cool as hell, man.
To celebrate the film and, it having been filmed there. It's funny because Santa Cruz was kind of the murder capital of the world back from 1970 to 1973. It endured something between 28 and 30 murders in those 3 years. So it really was the murder capital of the world.
Yeah, so it's a fitting name for the back of the billboard.
Yeah. And, further on with the cast, you have, first of all, you have Jason Patric as the older brother, who is the spitting image of Jim Morrison.
Especially when he first drinks the wine and he starts kind of like his, I don't know, I don't want to say trip, but like his metamorphosis.
Right.
If you will, and like the Jim Morrison posters in the background, just kind of
you got his face superimposed over it.
Yeah,
and you get that parallel that he's going into this trippy experience. It's incredible. Jason Patric almost didn't want to do the film because he didn't want to do a vampire movie, but it was a damn good choice for him to do. He comes from acting royalty, actually. His father. Let's go back to his grandfather. His grandfather, you probably don't know this, but, this is back in the 50s and 40s. It was this actor named Jackie Gleason, and he had a series called The Honeymooners.
Okay.
And he was a huge star, and one of the last big films he did was in the 70s called Smokey and the Bandit. That's his grandfather.
Okay.
And on his mother's side. His father, an actor named Jason Miller, who was the young priest in The Exorcist.
Hey, look at that.
And if you go back to the earlier episodes that we did, this one episode we did on The Exorcist, when we were talking about the curses, that Jason Miller's son was almost killed by a motorcycle, ironically, because there's a motorcycle sequence in here.
Yeah.
He was almost killed. That was Jason Patric from this film.
Trip out.
Who almost died. So Patrick was in it, and he had the Corey actors, the Corey Haim and Corey Feldman, the younger brother, and one of the Frog brothers. They both ended up doing quite a few movies together, like 3 or 4 films. They were the best of friends. Unfortunately, Corey Haim, he passed away 5-10 years ago, maybe more. I can't remember.
Damn, he must have been young then.
Oh, he was young. It was drugs that took him. And they were the best of friends. I mean, they were both hardcore into drugs.
Yeah.
Both of them. I mean, it was the 80s, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Everybody was doing coke and heroin.
One time I was helping out a customer at work, and he says, man, the 80s was a hell of a time. But let me tell you, man, if you remember the 80s, You didn't party hard enough in the 80s.
Right.
I looked at, I was like, man, you got stories to tell.
Oh man, it was a wild time. The more money you had, the more you partied. It was crazy. It was the era of excess. One of the notable characters in the film were the Frog Brothers. They were the vampire hunters who worked in the comic book shop.
Yeah.
Oh, love them. You know what their names are? Edgar Frog and Alan Frog.
Oh, I wonder why. Edgar Allan Poe?
Yes. So that was kind of neat. Just love the film. Unfortunately, I mean, like I mentioned earlier in Santa Cruz, they do acknowledge the film and celebrate it because it was filmed there. The bandstand where the band is playing in the beginning and the comic book shop, they were destroyed by an earthquake in '89, so they're no longer there. But a lot of the piers still there. But yeah, it's kind of sad. And of course, we can't go on discussing this film without discussing Saxophone Man.
Yeah, man, he was cool.
He's a meme. And
super oiled up, ripped.
And he's going up. He actually is a saxophone player. And he toured in the 80s with Tina Turner.
Okay.
And I guess he did the oiled up body thing and, and his exaggerated saxophone movements. But he was pretty cool. He was really, really, really cool. So this film actually, it did really well. It was produced by Richard Donner, who did The Goonies.
Superman.
And Superman.
Yeah, that's a name I recognize.
Yeah, Richard, he's the man. He was. Loved his films, Lethal Weapon, The Omen. The guy was, So he was actually going to direct this. But production kind of it extended a little too long, or pre-production for The Lost Boys, that he had to move on to his next project, which was Lethal Weapon. So he brought in Joel Schumacher to direct. And Joel Schumacher directed other films like Flatliners and Batman Forever, amongst quite a few films. Movie called Falling Down with Michael Douglas. Great director, also no longer with us, but an amazing director. But you do see a lot of little callbacks to Richard Donner when they're in the video store at one point. Max, who plays the quote-unquote father of the vampires. Yeah. When she first meets him in the video store, in the background, there's a little thing of the Goonies.
Okay.
So
that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and they do quite a few things like that throughout the movie. The movie, believe it or not, it gave us 2 sequels that should not have ever been made. They were horrible.
Yeah, I saw the 2 sequels when I was looking up for The Lost Boys on where to watch it.
Yeah, it's like, no, you don't.
Tribe and something else.
The Thirst.
Yeah,
in 2008 and 2010. They were both direct to video, and they were pretty bad. Corey Feldman came back, one of the Frog Brothers. In fact, both Frog Brothers came back for the second, and then Corey Feldman just came back for the third. And they were pretty bad. Not really worth watching, and it just kind of salties up the original film. But nonetheless, Lost Boys to me is the epitome of cool, of teenage vampire films, of teenage angst. Much better than a film that we're not going to mention.
Twilight.
We're not going to mention Twilight.
No, never. Twilight.
One of the worst vampire films ever made. So with that being said, and I'm sure we pissed off quite a few people, including your sister.
Yeah. She'll survive.
So let's move on to the next one. The next one is pretty much as gothic and as creepy as you can get, and it has a super stacked cast.
You like dying? You condemn me to hell!
Monster. One happy family.
Take her, Louis! End her suffering and yours! But do not doubt! You are a killer!
I want some more.
The film tells a story about a vampire who tells his epic life story about love, betrayal, loneliness, and hunger. The film we're talking about is Interview with the Vampire, 1994, directed by Neil Jordan. Now here's the cast. Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, Antonio Banderas, Kirsten Dunst, and Christian Slater.
Okay.
An incredible cast. You have not seen this, right?
Correct.
And I've seen it years ago, and from what I remember, it's a beautifully filmed. The cinematography and the lighting and the act, it's just it's almost Victorian kind of feel to it, especially the earlier scenes, because it goes through time, different eras. it was just an amazingly beautiful film. Creepy, gothic. Brad Pitt, who pretty much, I believe this was what just shot him to stardom. The opening sequence is you got this guy who's an investigative reporter who's tracking down vampires or something, and he gets an interview with this guy who says, I will talk to you.
That's a pretty shitty job.
Yeah.
You got to go looking for danger.
Yeah, it's like, okay, what, you're going to go investigate, corruption in City Hall. You, what about you? Well, I'm going to go, check out gang activity. What about you? I'm going to go look for vampires.
Yeah.
Pass.
I'll take the gang.
Yeah, when you get that guy telling you, yeah, I'll meet with you after dark. Just you and me. Yeah, I don't think so.
No, I'm okay.
But Christian Slater is the reporter, and they sit down, and Brad Pitt just delivers this amazing performance from the get-go when he starts telling him his story. And then they go into the past, into like the 1600s, how he was a plantation owner, et cetera, et cetera. He loses everything. Then he meets Lestat, which is played by Tom Cruise. And you get this whole whirlwind of a story and just going through the underworld of vampirism. And it's a damn good film. Kirsten Dunst from Spider-Man fame. This is one of her earlier films. She was like, 12 years old when she did this? And
Young.
she was just a kid. And she wasn't allowed to see the movie once it was done. Of course, and granted, because, there was violence and sex and gore and just...
Yeah, a bit much for a 12-year-old.
Yeah. You're going to work on this, you're not going to see it. And
you'll see it when you're older.
Yeah, in which she finally did. The novel goes back, 1976, Anne Rice. And it was a popular series of novels. And they've been in development ever since then. And there was always this high anticipation to get these made into films. So I think it was Paramount Pictures. They actually purchased the rights initially, before the books were published. But it never got off the ground until like in the 90s, early 90s. Late 80s, early 90s, because the film came out in 94. And so they went through several directors and finally settled on Neil Jordan. His previous film was a film called The Crying Game. Have you seen this?
No.
Damn good movie. Really good. Basically about this guy who falls in love with this nightclub singer, only to find out later on that it's a dude. Yeah. It's a heavy duty film. It touches upon the subject of, this guy falls in love with this person. Mm-hmm. And they have sexual encounters, and, well, you can kind of figure out how they get around the sexual elements, but and we're not going to go into that.
That's a trip. What year was this, 92?
92. Huh. There's the point where he's in love with this person, and I forgot the name of the actor who was in it, when he finds out that it's a dude. Mm-hmm. And it is a heartbreaking, gut-wrenching situation, because he's in love, but he's not gay. Mm-hmm. But he is in love, and it just opens up all kinds of doors for discussion.
I give it 5 years before this is remade.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure it'll. I don't know. The movie was very well received, so I don't think they'll remake it. Mm-hmm. But the subject matter is ripe for
audiences nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a damn good film. It's dark, it's sad, it's heartbreaking, and the performances were fantastic. In fact, the guy who goes on pretending to be a female is the same actor who was the prince or the main villain in Stargate.
I don't remember.
Yeah, it was the same actor, but damn good movie. So based off of that, his cinematic style, his way of telling a story is what eventually drove them towards Neil Jordan to do this. And he did an amazing job because, most directors would approach this as a vampire film. Mm-hmm. But it's more of a character study, and it's a character-based film. And he does it really well. The one thing that did kill it for me was Tom Cruise.
Okay.
This was Tom Cruise's, one of his first really outlandish dramatic roles, and it just didn't fly. It didn't work. In fact, even Anne Rice was pissed off when they hired Tom Cruise on as Lestat. He's supposed to be this charming French dignitary and this cultured Tom Cruise is none of that as far as what he can portray. Mm. He did the best he could. I'm not going to say it was a horrible performance, but it was a very limited performance. But later on, after she saw the film, she's like, oh, okay, well, you know what? He warmed up to me and I thought he did a great job. she still didn't care for him. Talk about special effects. It wasn't special effects driven. Again, it was more story and character driven, but there was some makeup effects. And Stan Winston of Terminator and Alien fame, he was hired on to do special effects for the film. And Jordan was like, well, this is not Terminator and this is not Alien. This is a vampire movie. But they're also really good with makeup effects, which they did an amazing job. Overall, I mean, the film, it holds pretty much a decent approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, like 64%, which I think is a little low. But I think it was probably the Tom Cruise factor that kind of brought
Probably
it.
a whole bunch of people related to the same issue that you had.
Yeah, it could have been even worse. Tom Hanks was considered
Ugh.
as Lestat.
I like Tom Hanks, but
He's no fucking vampire.
he's no fucking Frenchman either.
No, far from. So yeah, that was pretty. Again, that's one thing that kind of killed it for them for the film itself. It did spawn one sequel and a current series that's on one of the cable, I think AMC or something like that. Interview with the Vampire, but it did come out with a sequel called. Yeah, sequel was called Queen of the Damned, and it did pretty shitty. They couldn't get Tom Cruise back, Brad Pitt, nobody would come back. So, not a very good film. Wouldn't recommend it. I saw just a clip of it, and
That was enough.
that was enough. So now let's move on to our final entry. And all I got to say is that this is the most badass, kick-ass vampire ever to grace the silver screen.
There's worse things out tonight than vampires.
Like what?
Like me. He makes the weapons. I use them. It's open season on all suckers.
The film is about a half vampire, half mortal man who becomes a protector of the mortal race while slaying vampires. We're talking about Blade from 1998, directed by Stephen Norrington. The movie stars Wesley Snipes, Stephen Dorff, and Chris Christopherson.
This shit is badass. Nothing else to say about it, man. This shit is bad.
What I love about this film, it's basically about he's a half vampire, half mortal, and he decides to protect the human race. And he's what they call a daywalker. So he's a vampire who's able to walk out into daylight. And so within the construct of the plot and everything, you have an underground secret society of vampires that are pretty much in power of the world, but they want to take over the world. He's always had a battle with him. And then you have, so Wesley Snipes, his character of Blade, has his partner named Whistler, who develops weapons for him and everything. And he goes to battle against vampires. Kick ass. I mean, if you have seen Blade, you know what blood rave is.
The first time I saw this, I was, it tickled me. You know what I mean?
The techno music kicks in.
Yeah.
He breaks out his sword, and it's just one of the best action vampire films out there. And they've been trying to do a remake of it, and
so the remake for this was with Mahershala Ali.
Who's a good actor.
He's a damn good actor.
Yeah.
But it's, I don't know. There's like a whole thing with it because they've been through like 3 rewrites, couple reshoots.
I think one of the
directors stepped down or got fired from it. So
yeah,
it doesn't seem to be very promising.
Well,
not only that, okay, Mahershala Ali. Can you picture him?
I can. Yeah.
He's a good actor, right? But he doesn't come off very intimidating. I mean, you put him next to Wesley Snipes. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I would feel very like, ooh, with Wesley versus Mahershala Ali.
Yeah, Mahershala, he comes across he can be stern and tough and serious. But Wesley Snipes is, badass.
Yeah.
There's no comparison. And also Disney, of course, is Marvel, and Marvel is Blade. Will they bring out the same hard-edged?
They will not go with the hard R.
No.
They will not go with the hard R.
And Blade has to be rated R.
Yeah.
Blade is, first of all, just badass. And what's amazing, he's one of the first major black superheroes, which is a milestone. But he does so by maintaining, he's street, but he's a superhero. And he's badass. He's not like, excuse me, ma'am, can you get out the way? He's like, yo, get the fuck
out the way, man.
Yeah, and I love that. Remember the scene in the hospital when when he's rescuing
Rescuing?
Rescuing.
Rescuing.
He's rescuing a main character, and the cops
Are shooting at him.
and he gets shot in the shoulder. He's like, motherfucker, did you just shoot me? Do you think Disney's gonna do this?
Absolutely not.
And and then you got the blood rain at the rave. So much blood. That alone
is a hard R.
That's an R rating. Will Disney do it? I mean, Disney and Marvel, they were very iffy about doing a Deadpool 3, which is going to be R.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of pussyfooted around that a little bit. They're like, I don't know.
We'll do it, but we don't really want to.
Right. So
it'll take the name.
So Blade, without Wesley Snipes, Ridley, and a soft PG-13
it's
rating,
not going to work.
It's not going to work. I mean, unless they go all out and make it what it's supposed to be, a hard-edge, streetwise, vampire action film, it's not going to work. And honestly, I hope it doesn't get made. And if they do it the right way.
Yeah.
Again, the casting is pretty decent, but, we want to keep it. The first Blade appearance was, 1973 in The Tomb of Dracula in Marvel Comics. So it has a deep history. And even then, he was just a straight up badass. But to me, this is one of my favorites. And the sequels were great, too.
Oh, yeah. Even the one with the brought on Ryan Reynolds, too.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And Jennifer Trinity, Blade Trinity.
Yeah.
So overall, I mean, when New Line Pictures, they bought the rights from this, from Marvel Comics, they were set to do it kind of like a Mexico Western setting.
Okay.
With Richard Roundtree, who was the badass black actor from the 70s.
Okay.
And it was going to be him as Blade. And thank goodness that didn't come down.
Yeah, I don't know about a Western.
Yeah. And then, they even were going to go with LL Cool J, the rapper, in the lead role.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, pretty much. It wasn't until they settled to like 3 different actors. It was Denzel Washington, Wesley Snipes, or Lawrence Fishburne. Interesting.
You know what? I
can see Lawrence Fishburne.
I can see Lawrence. I can even see Denzel.
Well, yeah. I mean, Denzel, you got 2 films that he's done that he's shown a total badass side to him. One was Training Day. Mm-hmm. Have you seen this?
No.
Oh, his best performance ever. We plays a crooked, over-the-top bad cop. Mm-hmm. Amazing. And of course, he did The Equalizer.
Yeah.
So he can be badass.
He can.
So I think he would have been good in it. Lawrence Fishburne would have been pretty good. But Wesley Snipes was pretty much the final choice, as David S. Goyer, who wrote the script for it, he wrote it with Wesley Snipes in mind. And so it finally got done. It was brought in on a budget of like 50 million.
Okay. And
which is pretty good. I mean, that was the average budget for films back then. And it had a huge box office. I don't know exactly what it was, like 200, 300 million. So it did very well. However, it had a disastrous test screening with audiences.
Why?
Well, if you look at this film and watch it again, it's not extraordinarily fast-paced. Mm-hmm. But the way it's cut, it makes it work.
Right.
Which means that it might have been a little slower.
Okay.
In the original cuts. So
Got it.
Yeah, so they had to do some heavy edits and reshoots, and it was delayed for about half a year. But the end result...
If the end result works, I mean, who cares?
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. It's one of my all-time favorite Marvel films. So with that said, overall, the vampire film goes way back. 1922 was the first real vampire film. Mm-hmm. A film called Nosferatu, directed by F.W. Murnau. It was a silent film. And if you have not seen this, have you seen this?
No.
Check it out. It's genuinely creepy. You have to watch these films through the lens or the glasses of a person at that era. Mm-hmm. And it'll scare the shit out of you. Especially the fact that it's silent. But the story behind Nosferatu in 1922 was F.W. Murnau and the studio. They wanted to do Bram Stoker's Dracula, which was written, 1897? So it was just, not even 30 years old. So they wanted to adapt it for film. But the Bram Stoker estate refused.
Okay.
And no, we're not granting you the rights. So Murnau and the studio's like, fuck it, we're going to make it anyway. And they did. They changed a few things around. So instead of Count Dracula, it was Count Orlok. And the description In the book, he's more like a gentleman-looking kind of man, good-looking guy, and they changed it to this bald-headed, pointy-eared, big fangs kind of creature. So they changed quite a few around, but pretty much the film is the same concept and story. So much so when this movie was released, the Bram Stoker estate, they sued the studio for this copyright infringement.
Right.
And they won. So the courts, they ordered the studio to collect all the copies. In fact, they went on and collected all the copies and destroyed them.
Oof.
Every single copy. Apparently so.
Apparently.
There was a few copies that were found maybe in the late 80s, early 90s. They found 5 copies. And some kind of deteriorated, some areas, some not. And in 1994, painstakingly, frame by frame, they restored this masterpiece.
Damn.
Thank God that they found this and they were able to do so.
Half a century later.
And, you know, they were able to release it at this point because it's already public domain.
Yeah.
So they can release it. And
wouldn't the argument be able to be made that, oh, well, it wasn't our public domain back then, so, and this is a product of its time, so we can't still, I don't know, I'm just saying, like,
well,
but at that point, who's gonna fight it?
Who's gonna give a shit? Yeah. I mean, it's like
half a century later, the motherfuckers are dead anyways.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it's an amazing film, and the fact that they were able to save cinematic history, as this was the first vampire film. Now, there were vamps, quote unquote, in stories earlier, but they weren't the classic vampire, the blood-sucking undead that was presented in Bram Stoker's Dracula. And so Dracula would be credited as the first vampire story, Nosferatu, the first vampire film. And then, of course, in 1931, you have Universal Studios, or RKO at the time. They did their version of the official Bram Stoker's Dracula with Bela Lugosi. Not a bad film. I saw it. I read the novel. And I saw the film, and they changed a lot. Dracula was a lot different in the book and so forth, but it worked for what it did. But that 1931 version cemented the image and the sound of Dracula. Like in the intro, when you said, blah, blah, blah,
blah.
I am Dracula. Well, that was all, that standard of way he talked and the way he looked was set by Bela Lugosi's interpretation of Dracula, the way he dressed and everything. I mean, everything from Count Chocula on cereals to the Count on Sesame Street, all that goes back to Lugosi's interpretation and presentation of the character. Even the widow's peak on his hair and all slicked back and the stare that he gives, all that goes back to Lugosi's performance. So that cemented the image of what Dracula looks like today. But Nosferatu went on to one remake in 1979 with Klaus Kinski. Not a bad remake. It was pretty true to the original. And then there was a film called, in 2000, I believe, a film called Shadow of the Vampire, which was with John Malkovich and Willem Dafoe. Damn good cast. And it's about the making of
Nosferatu?
Of Nosferatu.
Yeah, look at that.
But the problem is, see, this is based on a little legend story behind the original film. Count Olaf was played by an actor named Max Schreck. This guy thought, he was a method actor, first of all. He really got into the role that he believed he was a vampire.
Okay.
And he would walk around all fucking weird and look at people strange. He wouldn't even talk to people on the set.
It's creepy.
Yeah. So based on that legendary story, they kind of take that into this film called Shadow of the Vampire, where Max Schreck was a vampire. And he starts killing the fucking crew, sucking their blood and killing them. What's amazing about this film is that they recreate sets and sequences from the original film.
That's cool.
To a T. Identical. The wall, the floor, the table, the flower pot on the table. Everything is identical to the original film. But it's a damn good film. It's a good film to watch after the original Nosferatu. And you would just be blown away. Underrated film, kind of forgotten in time. And we do have 2 remakes of Nosferatu coming up. One is in post-production and one is in production. So they'll be coming out around the same time. One is with Bill Skarsgård from It,
Okay.
the new It film,
He's good.
and also he was in Barbarian. Damn good actor. He's going to be Nosferatu.
Nice.
Yeah. And then you have another one starring Doug Jones. Doug Jones, you won't recognize him because he's always in costume.
He's always behind like 20,000 pounds of makeup too. You will
Yeah.
not see his face.
He was the creepy character in Pan's Labyrinth, the one with he
Pale,
uses
the pale man.
the pale man,
Pale eyes?
pale
Something like
eyes,
that.
something like that. He was also in Hellraiser. He was the amphibious
Abe Lincoln.
Abel Lincoln in Hellboy. So he's always under costume, but he's well known for his agility, his physical acting, and he's very thin and slender. So he does these costumed roles really well. Well, he's going to be Count Olaf in the other remake.
I'm watching both of them.
I'm done. Yeah. Usually when you got competing films of the same nature, you go, well, you know what? This one sounds better. I'm going to just watch this one. Fuck, I'm going to watch both of them. They both sound amazing. And I can't wait for both of them. But the classic treatment of the vampire legend, again, was brought out in 1931 with Universal's Dracula with Bela Lugosi. And they went on and did like two more sequels under Universal with Daughters of Dracula. Yeah, 1936. And of course, this was a staple back in the 40s and 50s. We have to have the son of
course,
Dracula. And that was in 1943, and both were with Bela Lugosi, I believe. And Lugosi went on to play the role of Dracula or that character in other films, a couple of comedies and spoofs and everything. But pretty much it wasn't until like 1958 when Dracula came back into presence. There was these Hammer production films from England, and they did, Christopher Lee?
that name sounds super familiar.
He was Count Dooku in the Star Wars
Yes.
prequels. He was Dracula. And this was in 1958. And these films, there was 8 films in total from 58 through 1974. I remember some of these fucking movies when I was a kid, and they were bad. They were just bad, but they were popular. And they were, for the time, they scared the shit out of me as a kid. For the time. And it also starred as Van Helsing, an actor by the name Peter Cushing. Who is Peter Cushing? He is Grand Moff Tarkin in the original Star Wars film.
Yeah, look at them just pulling Star Wars.
Yeah. I guess George Lucas was a fan of both of them. He obviously most likely grew up with them in these vampire films. But the Hammer era was pretty popular, and they did well for the time being. But since then, you definitely, the vampire genre and the vampire film has not died out. You got a lot of great films that have come out since. It's one of those that just, they come and go. They don't really disappear. They're always
just kind of there every other while.
And it's not hard to make a hit vampire film. Unless you're doing Twilight, which was total shit.
Yeah. There's no saving that movie.
Yeah, I can't be nice about it because they were bad and a joke to the genre. But other films, of course, you have 1992's Bram Stoker's Dracula, which we covered on our Valentine's episode.
Correct.
Which was a love movie, a love story.
Sure, if you look at it in a weird way.
Yeah, okay, with Keanu Reeves, Anthony Hopkins, Gary Oldman, directed by Coppola. Damn good film, I think, splicing together the elements of Vlad the Impaler, the historic figure, and Dracula, which was pretty good. Fright Night, the 1985 film with Chris Sarandon. Have you seen this? I think you've seen the remake, right?
I saw the remake.
And it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all. But there's a certain campiness to the original Fright Night from 85 that just has a charm to it that, it's just a lot of fun. From Dusk Till Dawn, 1996, directed by Robert Rodriguez.
I'll watch that movie just for Salma Hayek.
Yeah, she is pretty awesome in that.
She acts really well.
Yeah.
Good actress.
Yeah, so we'll move on because I don't want to get in trouble.
Nah, I can say it.
Yeah, you can. But it's with George Clooney, Harvey Keitel, and Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
Who also wrote
he put himself in that movie for just his part where fucking Salma Hayek puts his toe in his mouth.
Yeah, because for those of you who don't know, Quentin Tarantino is one of the great modern filmmakers of our time, but
he has a foot fetish. There's no way to say it. He has a foot fetish.
Yeah, if you study his films, you'll see feet.
Yeah.
In certain sequences. And there's a scene where Salma Hayek does this seductive dance and she puts her toes in his mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was obviously like, well, how do we make the scene more sensuous? He's like, oh, toes.
Toes. Put that shit in my mouth.
Right. Yeah. So that was pretty strange, but overall it was a fun vampire film. It was really good. And then, of course, you have Underworld from 2003 with Kate Beckinsale, which spawned like how many sequels?
Like 4 or 5.
Yeah, and the first one was really good because it kind of combined the vampire gothic look with the Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
It had that really glossy look, which was really cool. You know, so it was a supernatural Matrix kind of thing, you know. And
Plus werewolves.
And it was damn good. I enjoyed the first film. You know, vampire films continue. And, you know, they are talking about doing a remake of Twilight. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So with that unpleasant thought, we'll go ahead and start bringing this to a close. So like we said earlier in the episode, this is our final episode of the season. Did you think we'd make it this far?
I did.
You did? Oh.
I did.
See, I'm the pessimist. I'm always like, oh, I don't know if we can, but I end up doing it anyway, you know? And
I'm going to complain about it, but I'm going to fucking do it.
Yeah. And we did it, you know? Each episode we've grown and we've improved and just been having more and more fun with the series. And we look forward to season 2.
Mm-hmm.
So right here, like I said in the beginning, we have a decanter of Grey Goose vodka.
Sponsor us.
And a couple of shot glasses. So here is a shot for Carlos and a shot for me. So let us toast. So I would like to toast to my co-host.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is that me?
That would be you.
Oh, yeah.
The guy in that chair.
Nice.
Awesome job. Couldn't have done it without you. And I look forward to a season 2.
And I would like to cheers to you to be the one editing, writing. 90% of it, I just kind of show up and do the funny commentary. You know?
But you do it very well.
And you do too, sir.
Salud, partner.
Salud.
Okay. Oh, that was good.
Ooh.
All right. So, that was, yeah.
Ooh.
Oh, that was good. That was very goosey.
I taste the gray.
So, with that being said, we hope you've enjoyed our show. And like I said, this is the end of our first season. We'll be back in about 3 weeks or so with more movie talk. We thank you for listening. So in the meantime, we will be gearing up and prepping for the next season. So check us out on our Facebook group page for further details on the release date for the first episode of season 2. So please help to support the pod by giving us a 5-star rating. Leave us a good review. Another way you can support us is simply to subscribe and or follow us on Amazon, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Deezer, Audible, Boomplay, or wherever you get your podcast fix. Also, don't forget to check us out on our Facebook group page, like I stated earlier, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and on our YouTube channel. All these links, they're in our show notes. You can also contact us directly via email to thefilmjoepod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, get some feedback. So, any parting words at the end of our first season?
I want to say, as I was watching The Lost Boys, I forgot to add this in there. But as soon as the motherfucker, the Max, was going over to the family's house, and he was saying, "May I come in?" And then the dude had to invite him in. I was like, that motherfucker's a vampire. I fucking called it as soon as I was watching it. I was like, you have to be invited in.
Well, good observation.
Yes.
Just
wanted to throw that in there.
Well, took a shot of vodka to bring it back.
A little bit.
Right. All right.
I was trying to find a way to like worm it back in there. I was trying to show that I'm a wise motherfucker.
You are wise. You're wise. So, well, with that being said, I'm Joe.
I'm Carlos.
And this is the Filmjoe podcast,
where film talk happens.
Yo.